What we do here is go back.
How's it going, everyone, and welcome to episode 70 of the Lost Media Podcast. Today we're talking about the Billy and Mandy pilot, the first ever Billy and Mandy thing ever made, the trepanation of the skull and you, and the story as to how this was premiered and then uploaded online. This is one of those incredibly hilarious stories of Lost Media building up so much hype and then the result being completely different to what everyone expected of it. I really wanted to talk about this because I heard about this for many years, and then when this was released, I was really interested in it. I didn't have a problem with this. I don't think anyone had a problem with it, per se. I just think people were expecting something completely different because there was a screenshot of Billy and Mandy in an early test animation that was actually just a still, and everyone thought that was a screenshot or a grab from the original pilot, which is quite hilarious. It was just a test animation of what the show could look like. It was nothing to do with the original pilot. In fact, it wasn't from anything. It was just a still that was made. But we'll talk about the full story. There was a lot of hype building on the internet to whether or not this would be uploaded by Maxwell Adams, the creator. And he spoke about it in interviews and said, yeah, maybe I should get that thing transferred from VHS to digital. Maybe we should get it finally out there and uploaded as well. So he wasn't completely opposed to uploading this. This is nothing like the Johnny Bravo Meso Blues short where Van Partible never really showed any interest in uploading it online or sharing it with the world. He kind of just kept that to himself and didn't want to upload it, whereas he actually thought, Maxwell Adams, that this was potential for being posted online and people seeing this, and he was not against it. It's just a completely different thing because it's one of those scenarios of the Lost Media community just not being being ungrateful. A lot of people. I don't like it when people hype something and they don't know enough about it, and they're hyping something they don't know enough about, and it's just like when they watch it, they're like, oh, this wasn't what we wanted, or this wasn't what I expected. This is shit. It's like, you get what you're given. You wanted it, here it is. I'm joking. No, but it is very fascinating to me that all everyone had was this one screenshot for so long, and everyone was building this up. Even Blame It on George talked about this in his original 40 Lost or Banned episodes of kid shows, and other YouTubers were talking about it and building this thing up. And he did an update as well to it, and he started, talking about how this was going to be released. I don't think he talked about how disappointing the result was. I think that was more of an L Supersonic Q. That was from an L Supersonic Q video where he spoke about Lost Media. It didn't quite live up to the hype, and everyone was eagerly anticipating watching this pilot. And the name of it is very difficult to announce. And the pilot was actually quite entertaining when it was aired. When it was shown initially in a theater, in a little festival. It's just them drilling a hole through the head. I think it's Billy just getting drill through his head, and it's quite a Happy Tree Friends, I guess you could say, style. But the animation is obviously very bootleg, I guess you could say, because it's something he made in college. It was just an original test of these characters, same thing as Meso Blues probably was, and it's just a little example of how he first started coming up with these characters and what he was thinking of doing with them. It's nothing that's gonna be, the animation levels of quality of the actual show, The Grim Adventures of Bill and Mandy. This is a completely different thing that is just a little test animation. It's not really even an animation. I mean, it is an extremely poor quality. It's obviously made on very little budget, and it's designed to show what he wants out of these characters, and it's a little fun messing around project. It's kind of meant to be. I don't think it was ever intended to ever be the pilot for the actual Cartoon Network show. I just think this was something he made for fun in college. So funny, in my opinion, though, that everyone just expected it to be that animation style. Now, it does look completely different to the actual show, The Grim Adventures of Billy Mandy, this still. And it doesn't look great, but it has color to it. And it has it looks like it's something that's less of a 1930s Mickey Mouse railboat, oh my god, steamboat cartoon, and more of, a proper test pilot that has, kind of interesting animation and colors, and it looks different to the show still, and it's, a fascinating piece, and that one still just built up the hype. And I'm disappointed personally that when a creator actually wants to release something and they release it and everyone's like, it's like I said, it's like you get what you're given. What were you expecting? Like, well, I know what everyone was expecting out of this, but it's just really, really funny to me. Interesting. You're probably guessing for a standalone topic on the Lost Media podcast. I like stories of lost media finally being released, and then everyone's just like, oh yeah, okay, it's boring now. It's just like, it shows how silly it is to obsess over something so small. Like a pilot, I can understand people being interested in a lost film or a lost TV show because there's a lot there. There's a lot there to be found. But when it's just a little test pilot that people are looking for a really long time, and then they get to see what it is, and they're not overly satisfied, it's like, well, what were you expecting? It's really fascinating though to see people build up their expectations in such a different way and then get the result. And the result is this black and white animation that is still fine. It's fine. It's an original version. It's the real thing. And it actually had people questioning when they first saw this, when bootleg versions of it being filmed in the cinema were uploaded, and then the actual version was uploaded. People were like, are you sure this is the real Billy and Mandy part? The screenshot I saw looks completely different. And then it was revealed that's just an animation still. That's from nothing. And that's it. I just think it's a bit ridiculous, if you ask me, that anyone should believe that they know what to expect out of something just from one screenshot. And it's a good lesson to know. I think this was one of those moments in the Lost Media community that don't expect something out of I guess something you have not enough information on. Don't expect the world out of something that is just not much to begin with, and that's what really fascinates me about this. But yeah, I get fascinated in those stories where, lost media was found in strange ways, which is what I'm going to talk about in an upcoming episode very soon. And pieces of lost media that build up so much anticipation only for people to just get let down. Kind of like this podcast. This is a different episode of the Lost Media podcast. I just wanted to talk about a little standalone topic. No episode of the Lost Media podcast is shorter than 10 minutes, but I figured I'm going to make a few little 10-minute ones just to discuss little topics that have fascinated me over the years that don't have maybe much to them, but there's an interesting story behind it, and this one really fascinated me, which is why I wanted to talk about it. But there you go, guys. The transport... Nah, I've forgotten it. I could only remember it after just reading it on my phone before I started recording. I'm never going to remember that. That's this really funny story. I like stories like that. They're really cool. As I mentioned in previous videos, there's going to be 3 videos uploaded to this channel that have nothing to do with Lost Media. I keep warning people about this, so when it comes up on the channel, they know that I've warned them. But I'm going to do it as much as I can in the next 5 or 6 recordings I'm doing here. But then I will stop warning people, because what else can you do but tell people, warn people so much, I guess you could say. And I'm still uploading a lot of videos. I'm probably away right now while this is being uploaded. This was recorded a long time before it was uploaded. You're not meant to say that in this industry. You're really never meant to specify that something was recorded a really long time before. That's a terrible idea. But yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff being recorded when I go away, and I'm doing collaborations with another creator, Ennui Radio. He's going to hate me for that if he ever watches that. It's the Ennui Talk podcast, and Ennui I am collaborating with, which I'm really excited for. I've known this creator for a few years, and we're finally meeting in person, and we're going to make some banger vids. Nothing to do with Lost Media, but if you like me, which is very unlikely, be sure to watch those when they're uploaded to the channel. And I'll link them in the end screen in the description. I'm going to put vlogs I'm making while I'm there in the description of videos. They've probably already been featured. In fact, they have already been featured in recent episodes of the Lost Media podcast. My little journey, my little content trip I'm going on, content adventure, which is really exciting and fun for me. I do have to end this podcast. Let me know, guys, in the comments if you found this topic interesting, if you like the shorter form podcasts, or if you think maybe you got to talk about stuff that has a bit more details to it. I like mixing it up here in the Lost Media podcast and talking about vague stuff and really interesting stories. I'm trialing that for a few episodes or a couple of episodes. And then obviously we'll get to the more detailed topics once again. It's just nice to change things up. There's a moth trying to enter room and wants lamp right now. I wish I could just switch the camera around and zoom in on it. It's actually quite hilarious. It wants lamp. What is this podcast?